Welcome back to another episode on the Roof and Rubble podcast, where we are real, raw, unfiltered, all the behind the scenes stuff. This week, I've been diving heavy into the Kabbalion again. If you haven't read it, might have an interruption. If you haven't read it, minor interruption. So the Kabbalion, I read it years ago, or yeah, I think years ago, and it really resonated. It was beautiful text, but there's something about reading it this time that is really hitting in such a different way and is making so much more sense and is landing. And I think sometimes, things like astrology or certain spiritual texts that we read, it's a language in its own, right? And it really is how awake or how elevated, or what term am I looking for? Just like where our consciousness is at to be able to understand and absorb the information and the like actual words and the meanings that are found in these texts. And so the Kabbalion is just like hitting in such a different way. I'm in such a different place that I was when I first read it. And so I'm absolutely loving it. Last week felt super, super energizing. And it's really interesting. So 8 years ago, my entire personal, like literally my whole journey of like finding who I am, self-worth, boundaries, everything was really rooted in two things. One was fitness, and the other was Monate, which is a network marketing. And I never thought that I would have been in a network marketing company business. And in hindsight, I thought I was so bad at it because I just, the team, I guess, that I joined at that time was very like hustle. It was like Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, kind of like hustle, have your friends and family sign up. And that just really didn't resonate to me. But what I learned through that entire process was personal development. I was introduced to names like Tony Robbins, like Grant Cardone, like James Clear. Like it kind of filtered out, and all of like my personal work really stemmed from that, right? The concept, like, if you don't believe in something, you can't sell it. And so essentially, if you don't believe in yourself, especially as a brand, like me being Rochelle, like the podcast, the brand, the astrologer, all those things, like if I don't believe in me, how can I expect anybody else to believe in me and want to purchase my courses or my secret podcast or like whatever, right? So it really like was the start of all of that, like building all that up for myself. And so in hindsight, I just like giggle because it was just like I said, I felt like I was so bad at it at the time, and I thought I failed. And then I came into Healy in oh my gosh, maybe it was like 3 years ago already. If you don't know what Healy is, it is a wearable frequency device. And I was obsessed. And the thing with me too is like, I'm not going to buy anything that has a business model behind it and not join the business model. I mean, unless like it really doesn't resonate with me. But that was a lot of astrology mentorship. I guess my mentor in astrology was in that. And so I joined really for like the community piece. And I learned so much through that as well. And this year, or actually last year, the end of last year, Monate came back up again for me, which was so interesting because it was like this 8 year cycle, that this was like rooted back into it. It like came back full circle. And I was just like, I sat on it. I let it go through my wave. I was like, the timing doesn't feel right, but like also the company is still around, which is a testament to its products. Like I was always a fan of like what it did, because my hair was so fried and so damaged because I had just gotten divorced, and I chopped off of my hair. I bleached it so badly it fell off. Like it was horrible. And so like I know that the product worked. I know that it repaired my hair, like all those things. And so anyway, so this past week, of course, with all these inner planets, the Venus Mars conjunction, Venus Sun conjunction, like this whole stellium that was happening, like so actually last Monday, I was like, you know what, I'm ready to be all in. Like I'm showing up, I'm doing this. And what's really cool about the company too is that they are the only network marketing that actually is allowed to sell in the TikTok shop, and you can be an affiliate to it. So that I thought was like so cool and ingenious. What's the word? I don't know. There's a word that's escaping my mind. But I just like love it. Anyway, this isn't like a pitch for that, but it's just to say that like I feel like the whole concept, like this new age of Aquarius that we're going in, I'm really trying to like, I think the new way of doing things, the new business models, the new way of working, the new way of being in community, it's shifting, it's changing. And we know that, right? And there are things like this that sort of like, I've been hearing this for years, right? Even since Healy, which I joined like 3 years ago, and I joined under an astrologer. And that was what was a big topic at the time too, was like this way of working, of being more passive, of being able to be in flow and just like doing what feels good and having like a team and just being able to like be part of something, but do it in your own way a little bit is like the new way of doing things. And it's so beautifully supportive to work in a different way, if that makes sense. Right. And so I think like the whole concept of like where we're going with this looks very different, like community, because it's like it's valuing the individual. And there's not necessarily like a leader, like a one leader as you would have like in a corporation. Like, yes, there's leadership tiers, but there's a, you can outrank somebody ahead of you. And anyway, all of that to say that like this past week has felt so energizing and so motivating and so inspiring. And I had a moment today where I was at work and there was something that actually made me mad. And I noticed my go-to of just like, oh, don't feel like that. It's whatever. It's fine. But then I like pulled myself back and I was like, you know what? I witness that this actually makes me really mad. I witness that I actually want to sit here and like pout about it. And I allowed myself to do that for about 30 seconds. I let myself just be mad and kind of pout. And I was like, I get to choose if this is going to dictate my day. And I was like, you know what? Regardless, I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to make connections, regardless of like what comes out of the day. And I was able to then put that aside and just like, I literally had a great day. And so it really is the power of choice. And what the Kabbalion speaks to as well is like, I wish I had the quote next to me too. I don't have the book next to me. But in essence, it was saying like, it's not about like bypassing the emotions, but it is about taking your pain to a higher frequency, a higher plane of frequency, right? And it's not just like, you can't bypass out of it. You can't say, I just don't want to feel this and move on. We have to like witness and acknowledge and accept what we're feeling. And then we can transmute that. Then we can, mental transmutation, we can take it to a different plane. And so just like that, I noticed that process happening today and the power of choosing. And it wasn't just like a fake choice. Like, when you want to choose something, but your whole body feels a different way and you're kind of in this push-pull battle. It was actually sitting with what was coming up in that moment and then proactively choosing something different. But it wasn't like in a resistant kind of like forceful way that I found myself like really trying to be positive in the past. It actually felt really natural and really beautiful. So all of that to get to this week's astrology. Okay, we're starting off Monday. This week in the astrology, there's a lot that is, all of these inner planets are going to be brushing up to Chiron and they're in a square to Chiron. So this is a little bit more challenging energy. Chiron is our wounded healer. Chiron is in Aries. So this is just a lot of like collective wounding around self-assertion, leadership, action, taking action, self-expression, like kind of like who am I too? Because Aries is I am. So when we have Chiron there, there's maybe like a question around it or there's some insecurity around it. So we start the week off with the sun square to Chiron. So this is just kind of shining a light on all of these themes, which could feel a little uncomfortable. And squares are challenging aspects, but they're offering us an opportunity to do something about them, to do something with them. And then on Tuesday, we have Mars square Chiron. Now, this one has the potential to make us feel angry, make us feel frustrated, make us feel angry, make us feel irritated. So all of those things that are coming up might just be like rubbing us the wrong way. So as you're navigating your day, notice if you're feeling this. And if you encounter a lot of people who are feeling angry or frustrated or irritable, know that it could be a potential side effect of this Mars square Chiron. So have a little bit of grace, right? With people today, if you're witnessing that. That's happening at 4:33 p.m. on Tuesday. And then the sun square Chiron is happening at 2:31 p.m. on Monday, the 12th. And then on Tuesday, later in the day at 5:33 p.m., the moon is moving into Sagittarius, moving out of Scorpio into Sagittarius. So we can nurture ourselves by maybe doing something a little bit different, like moving our body, maybe trying a different sort of like workout class, anything that's really going to like activate that sort of like Sagittarius energy so we can feel just emotionally nurtured in that way. Of course, it always depends on where things are in your chart, if you have any planets there. So that being said, and then I never ever wear my watch outside of work. I forgot to take it off and I have to remove it. Okay. And then Wednesday at 2:17 a.m., Mercury in Capricorn is going to be opposite Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is retrograde in Cancer. This is sort of lingering from last week when we had all, Mars, the sun, and Venus opposite Jupiter. And so this is offering us an opportunity maybe to communicate our emotions, communicate something that was coming up. Think about what was coming up last week, if anything came up around your inner world, your home life, your emotional experience. If there's anything that maybe you wanted to communicate or express, or noticing if your thoughts are like ruminating on something, thinking about something, because this is, Jupiter and Cancer is really giving us an opportunity to come inside and really do that work. And so again, with Mercury here, Mercury is the mind. Mercury, I did a whole reel on Instagram and a post on a video on TikTok. So the Kabbalion speaks about Hermes Trismegistus, right? Who is the father of astrology, psychology, astronomy, sciences, like all of these things, right? He like predates like even like Moses, like this, like if it's a real person kind of thing, right? But this is what we attribute the father of like all these things. And then, we have deities that were spawned off of Hermes Trismegistus. So like Hermes, Thoth, all of these things. And so I was like reading all this and I was like, wow, like Hermes, Thoth, like all these, they're all iterations, right? And Mercury is a representation of like all these iterations. It's not saying that Hermes or Mercury is Hermes Trismegistus, but there's an energetic connection there. And what I was thinking about was that, like I said before, like the Kabbalion says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And this feels so much like Mercury. Mercury holds so much more depth than I think that we give it credit for. A lot of people are like, it's tricky, it's sly, it's light, it's shallow, it's on the surface, especially like when we think about Gemini, right? Gemini's the tricksters, the twins, they're always kind of like joking, but there's so much depth actually to Mercury. And I think that Mercury, your perception of your experience of Mercury, it's sort of like that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Like the information that Mercury can hold for us, Mercury will meet us where we're at. So where are you and how are you meeting Mercury in your chart? And the depth at which you find that, the information that comes to you from Mercury is a mirror to where you're at, right? So when we're thinking like, Mercury in any aspect, anywhere in the chart, Mercury was the only god that could transcend all the worlds, because so it could go from heaven to earth to the underworld. And so this is just, Mercury actually holds so much depth that I think we gloss over, we don't really attribute to Mercury. And so this is like, I've been over the last like few months, I've really kind of been doing a deeper dive into Mercury and like my understanding of it. And I personally have Mercury in Taurus. So even when I think about that, like I deeply need to understand concepts, and it's a slower energy. I don't always read something once and it clicks, even with the Kabbalion, right? The first time I read it, yeah, it was cool. It's like, I took something from it, but the second time, like as I'm going slower and I'm actually reading it. So I have a paper book that I'm reading in the morning, and then I have it on my Kindle that I'm reading when I'm at the gym. So I'm like kind of like double reading it throughout the day. I don't know why. It's like, whatever. But it is that like Mercury and Taurus, like there's a slow, like consuming of the information. There's a slow, like integration of it, contemplation, whatever. Right. And so, but it's like once it clicks, then that Mercury is like, okay, now it really holds like the breadth of the information, and then it can like pass that on. So anyway, that's a whole side note on Mercury, but Mercury is fascinating to me. If you haven't watched the video, you can go, it's on TikTok, Instagram, all the places. Okay, so that's Wednesday. And then Thursday at 12:18 a.m., this is all Central Time, Venus is sextile to Saturn. And then at 9:22 a.m., Venus is trine to Uranus. So Venus in like, these are supportive aspects. Now, of course, they are outer planets. Uranus is retrograde. Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. Saturn, I feel like with all these in supportive aspects, Saturn can be offering us an anchor point, because later in the week on Saturday, the sun's going to be sextile to Saturn, and then Mercury is going to be sextile to Saturn. So it's kind of like offering us an anchor point, right? It's like, again, Venus in Capricorn is the long game, right? This is like, where are you committing? What goals are you holding? Like, what values do you hold? Where's your self-worth at? Is there something you want to save money for? Like all of these sort of Venusian themes. And in sextile to Saturn is really giving us the opportunity to really like anchor that in. And also, sort of like Saturn in Pisces is bringing our dreams into reality, right? It's solidifying these things into 3D. So, how can you use that as a supportive aspect to really like anchor in, to commit, to like take those actions and kind of like move on those things? And then trying to Uranus just doesn't like to be in Taurus. So, I don't even know if I can say that this is a supportive aspect. Like, it is, but it's also Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So it could be a little bit uncomfortable. But it's the Great Awakener. So it's going to be showing us truths that maybe we wouldn't have seen otherwise. It might shock the system. We might not really understand it or have like a full grasp on it until a little bit later. But that's sort of the energy here. On Friday at 12:20 a.m., Mercury is square to Chiron. So here we are again in a Chiron aspect. This is our mind again. So what are we thinking on? What subconscious beliefs are coming up? It's really giving us an opportunity to work through that, to rewire your neural pathways, to really dive in, journal, meditate, breath work, like whatever you can to like kind of like not get it out of your mind, but like rewire and just like really notice the way that your mind is working with this. And then at 5:47 a.m. on Friday, the moon moves into Capricorn, getting us ready for our new moon in Capricorn. Saturday at 2:33 a.m., Venus is sextile to Neptune. Now, this is at 29 degrees. This feels like definitely like a closing of a cycle. Neptune at 29 degrees for the final time of Pisces. We are never going to see that again in our lifetime. Neptune takes like 165 years to go around the zodiac. So unless, you never know nowadays, there are some miracle medical things happening. So maybe some of us will see Neptune and Pisces again, but probably not. So this is really closing up a cycle of like this whole Neptune and Pisces. And with it being in a sextile to Venus, again, values, morals, finances, relationships, commitment, goals, like all those kinds of things with it being in Capricorn. And we're just like closing up this loop, this cycle here. And then the sun is going to be sextile to Saturn. So sort of the same themes that we had with Venus there, except for the sun is just like really shining a light on it. And I just keep saying like bringing our dreams into reality, especially with Capricorn. Like, did you set any goals? Did you get any practical steps? Did you lean into Mars and like take some intentional action to like get the momentum, right? Because like anytime that we want to create new habits, it's like once we get the momentum and we notice like, oh wow, I actually feel good, and like commit to like showing up day after day, like that's when goals are sustainable, or like intentions, like if you want to like say New Year's intentions are more sustainable when we can be in that energy. And so again, like shining a light here. And then Venus moves into Aquarius. I have Aquarius ruling my seventh house. So I just kind of like, I don't know. I love Venus regardless. I have a Taurus stellium and I'm just like obsessed with Venus. So Venus in Aquarius, of course, values freedom, but it also, again, it is like, especially in this new age of Aquarius, it's like, we're valuing the individual within the collective, but there's no necessarily like leadership role. This is not Capricorn. This is not top-down leadership, right? This is like Aquarius, we're doing something different. We've been in the system, so we understand how it works. We understand what we need to make things work, but we're also valuing each individual person, their creativity, what they bring to the table, how we can be in community in a different way, right? So Venus in Aquarius is that sort of energy in our relationships. Also, if you're in a relationship and you feel a lack of freedom in any way, you might be brushing up against the discomfort of that while Venus is in Aquarius. And then at 10:58 a.m., the sun is going to be trine to Uranus and Taurus. So again, those themes are shining a light on them. Like, what did we learn with Uranus moving through Taurus? What still needs to be learned? Where are we changing things? What truth came to us? And then on Sunday, the 18th at 1:40 a.m., Mercury and Mars are going to be conjunct. So again, this is our mind. This is frustrations. What's happening? What are you thinking about? What are you ruminating about? Are you taking, again, intentional action? But like, where is the mind? Our communication and our mind is meeting action, movement, maybe a little frustration, could be a little sticky. And then our new moon in Capricorn is happening at 1:51 p.m. I'm actually going to do a new moon in Capricorn video, a whole other video. So I'm going to get more into that in that video. That'll come later in this week. So I'm not going to get like too deep into this, but this is happening at 28 degrees of Capricorn, and it's in gate 60, the gate of acceptance, the gate of limitation. And I kind of love this gate. Pluto has been here for a while. It's not there now, but it was in gate 60 for a while. This is in the root center. this is like accepting. Again, this kind of reminds me of the Kabbalion, right? Where it's like, um, I can't remember even like what law it is, but it's like accepting your limitation. And I think a lot of times when we create containers for something, we feel like we're limited, right? We feel like we're boxed into it. But when we can accept that, then that's when like the creativity or the insight or innovation or things can like really come out of that. And so that's kind of like the theme here. And again, I'm going to do a whole new moon video, so watch out for that one. 4:17 p.m., the moon moves into Aquarius, and then 10:09 p.m., Mercury is going to be sextile to Saturn. So again, these same themes that we've been talking about, this time we're really focusing on the mind, subconscious beliefs, what we're communicating on, what we're thinking about. And then at 11:37 p.m., Mercury is also going to be trine to Uranus. So kind of the same things. Maybe you'll feel a little bit of frustration at the, with these aspects to Uranus. Yes, again, it's supportive, but also remember this is our nervous system, especially with Mercury, nervous system, electrical impulses in the body. We could feel a little bit like dysregulated in that way. So just make sure that you're finding ways to regulate yourself. And yeah, again, I will be back with another video all on the new moon. I feel like my time tonight has come to an end as doors are opening in my room. But thank you so much for listening. And I will be back to talk about the new moon. And I hope you have a beautifully supportive week and just regulate yourself, right? Like find ways to anchor in, especially with all this coming up, brushing up with Chiron. If things are coming up, just make sure you're getting outside or meditating or whatever you find supportive, journaling, moving, dancing, whatever it may be. I will talk to you soon.